What is up, YouTube? Thatsy here, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a little video going over the top 10 dragon type Pokemon that you need to be using for ranked battles in Pokemon Legends ZA. If you guys like this sort of educational content, you want to see more stuff like it, think about liking the video, think about dropping a comment, letting me know the type you want to see me cover next, and if you have it within your hearts, think about dropping a sub on the channel. We're still trying to get to 50,000 subscribers. We're getting a little bit closer every single day, and we'd love to have you along for the ride. So without further ado, let's get right into this list. The websites that I'm going to be using for this little list is going to be PokeEos, which you can see right here. It's going to be Pokemon Showdown. I know a lot of people always ask that, and it's going to be the Pokemon Showdown damage calculator to run calcs to show you guys why some dragons are better than others. 14 legal dragons. There's going to be some dragons that actually miss the mark. So the 10th best dragon, I would say, for ranked battles in Legends ZA is actually going to be regular Goodra. I think it's a little bit better than Hisuian Goodra because you don't want to have that like automatic earthquake and fighting weakness, since those are very, very prevalent types on the ranked ladder. So let's take a look at regular Goodra and see what it actually brings to the table here. So regular Goodra is going to be just a standard dragon type Pokemon. So its only weaknesses are going to be to ice, fairy, and other dragons, and it actually packs a ton of coverage. One of the reasons why I like this site so much is because you can see all of the moves that each of these Pokemon learn through level up. You can see all of the moves they learn through TM. You can see all of their base stats, and you can see all of their weaknesses. So it gives us a really good understanding of what each one of these mons actually brings to the table. So going up to Goodra, what does it really excel at? Goodra excels at special defense. It's its highest stat, and it's going to be able to soak those damages, which is going to be really, really good in Season 2 against like Xerneas and Yveltal, stuff like that. It also comes packed with a pretty decent special attack and attack stat. You can build this guy physical or special. I do think it's going to be a little bit better on the special side since it gets access to all the different various dragon moves, Draco Meteor, Dragon Pulse, things like that. But then it also gets access to the, gold standard of Thunderbolt and Ice Beam and stuff like that. So Goodra is going to be a really good mon. Also gets like fire coverage. This thing's going to have amazing special coverage. So if we type in a Goodra right here, you can see that our coverage is going to look something like a Draco Meteor, an Ice Beam. Let's go Ice Beam, let's go Thunderbolt, and then let's go like, I would say Flamethrower is probably a pretty good one. Now, Goodra can be built a few different ways. You can go heavy like special attack. This is how people used to run Goodra like back in 2014, and you can slap like an Assault Vest on there. I think it also does get access to like Earthquake too if you want to go with like a mixed Goodra in some situations. But also, I think like an Expert Belt Goodra is probably really viable with a set like this. You're going to be able to hit a lot of mons for super effective damage. You can one-shot other Mega Dragons with this. You can check other dragons with this, so you don't auto-lose to them like blowing their Mega to block your first move. If they block your Ice Beam, just Draco them, and vice versa. Thunderbolt's good against things like Gyarados, other flying type mons, and Flamethrower is going to be great for picking off all of the Metagrosses. I actually think Goodra is a pretty good mon. I think one of the reasons why it's not super high on the list is just because there's so many other overpowered dragons, but I do think Goodra is very viable. Great Spadef, and I would say you probably need to make a screens user on your team if you're going to try and make this one work. But let me know what you think of Goodra in the comments, and let's go to the next dragon we're going to be taking a look at. So moving on to the 9th best dragon in Pokemon Legends ZA for ranked battles, I think the next one is probably going to be pretty surprising. I think a lot of people probably thought this would be a little bit higher, but I would actually pick Mega Altaria. I think Mega Altaria is going to be a pretty unique choice. It is the only dragon fairy in the game, if I recall correctly, and the main issue holding Mega Altaria back is just its lack of offensive stats. If we take a look at this thing, it's going to require you to actually Mega just to gain like similar stats to what Goodra had, right? Now, being able to block those dragon moves is going to be really good against things like, Mega Garchomp, Mega Zardex, a bunch of other dragons running around, but then gaining that fairy typing is going to mean it's sharing that same weakness with a lot of popular Pokemon in ranked battle season 2 like Xerneas. So, before you Mega, you're weak to like Ice Beams and Thunderbolts like Yveltal is, and then after you Mega, you're weak to like Steel and poison moves like Xerneas is. So it's kind of hard for Altaria, but that being said, it is a pretty cool mon. It gets like Moonblast, Stab, Dragon coverage, it gets Fire coverage. I think it's pretty cool. I personally really like this Mega, and I think it has unique enough typing to be usable. Like, you can pivot to an Altaria, utilize the fact that when you're, on base form Altaria, which is what's plugging right here, when you're in base form Altaria, you're a flying type, right? So if you have something like a Metagross, you can pivot to this to block fire and ground moves, and then from there, you could like Mega Evolve this and then like repin something like a Yveltal that would normally be pretty good against like a Metagross. So I do think that like there are teams that can realistically use this Mon, but it's just gonna be rough. I don't think it also gets any like realistic, like it doesn't get like Calm Mind. I don't think it gets like Nasty Plot. So it doesn't really get any moves that can boost its special attacks. So you're gonna be like two-shotting most things or just picking off the last shot. That being said, it does get really unique moves like Perish Song. You can technically also build it physical too. I guess it gets enough options for that. Let me know what you think of Altaria in the comments. Like I said, it's one of my favorites, just like Goodra, but there are just so many broken dragons in this game that I think we have to put it at 9th. So going into the next dragon on our list, and guys, please think about leaving a comment, letting me know what you like about this series so far. Please think about helping me get to 50,000 subscribers. I'm trying to make the content that I think you guys want to see, and I feel like little videos like this are pretty, educational. I feel we've made this sort of series in the past going over like the Let's Go games in like Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet, where we list like all the top Pokemon for each type. And in every one of those situations, I always get people leaving comments saying like, wow, this is such a valuable resource. I can always go back to this in case I'm looking for a specific type for a specific team. If you know that your team needs a dragon type, this is the perfect type of video to put on in the background just to absorb this information so you guys can get a little bit of a better understanding of how the meta kind of shakes up. So let's move on to number 8, and I'll stop trying to plug the channel here. The number 8 dragon here that I think you guys should be using for ranked battles is actually going to be Mega Dragalge. I think it's a pretty unique one. It's Dragon Poison, which means it actually can deal super effective damage against fairies. It's one of the new megas in the game, and look at that special defense stat. Now, it's very similar to Goodra here. I would say the reason why it's better than Goodra is because it has a little bit better defensive typing. Like, Dragon Poison is really, really cool. Yes, there is that ground weakness, but it's very unique. It can slot in very defensively on a team. I would say the one thing really holding this guy back is the fact that it does need to Mega, and it has a lower defensive stat than a SpDef stat, whereas most of the meta is built around, physical attackers at the moment. But that being said, like, I think it's a pretty cool mon, being able to stab those poison type moves while still getting, like, access to, like, Hydro Pump, Thunderbolt. Like, this guy gets amazing coverage, and Focus Blast, which is really, really good against Excadrills. So I think this is definitely a usable dragon, but at the same time, it takes a little bit of setup. Like, let's compare Mega Dragalge, right? And, like, Altaria. Like, it's no competition which one of these is actually better. So it makes sense it has to go a little bit higher on the list. And since speed isn't realistically a stat that's that usable in Legends ZA, I think it's a really good like stat stick. Like 163, if you pair this with screens, just like if you do with the Goodra, you're gonna get a ton of bang for your buck with a reflect up for this guy. So I think it's actually pretty cool. Obviously, like, sets are probably just gonna be like max special attack, max HP on this thing. Definitely want to max out that HP stat since we have a subpar HP base. You probably don't even need to go full HP investment on this, or sorry, full special attack investment on this thing, but I do think that you probably should. That being said, I think that this thing is probably a little bit better than people are giving it credit for. It's just that we are so early on in the meta that most of what this guy brings to the table is relatively underexplored. So for now, we're going to put it at 8, but I think there's potential for this thing to rise depending on how like popular Xerneas and stuff like that is in Ranked Battle Season 2. So moving forward to the 7th best dragon on our list, and I think it's going to be another new mega. And I just want to say, we are not counting like Zygarde forms here. These are not legal for ranked. We're not counting these guys. We're going to be talking about Drampa here though. Mega Drampa. I actually just got done making a video on my side channel showing Mega Drampa ranked play. I've been uploading a lot of like these new megas on my side channel. I think this is such a cool mon. It gets such amazing coverage. Look at this stat line. This is one of the highest base special attacks in the game, and it's a normal dragon type, so it actually makes it so it can slot in on ghost moves. This guy gets the perfect coverage, right? You get the Bolt Beam combo of like Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, you get Focus Blast, you get a lot of the same things, as well as like Heat Wave, Flamethrower, all that good stuff. This guy is the perfect coverage, as well as like a massive Stab Hyper Beam. This guy just dump trucks damage on every single opponent it's ever going to be fighting. Like, look at the difference between regular Drampa and this one. It's like regular Drampa is still strong at 135, but this guy gets a huge boost to defense and SpDef and special attack with a more respectable HP stat than something like the Altaria, the Goodra, and the Dragalge. So I really do like this thing, and I think it's going to see a lot of play. Like Hyper Beam is really good. I ran it with Draco Meteor, and then I had just standard like Ice Beam, Thunderbolt. Very, very cool stuff in the set that I ran, which is a full HP, full special attack set. Like nothing too spectacular. regular. I just think it's easy peasy lemon squeezy. The reason why this guy isn't even higher on the list is actually just because it needs its mega, similar to Dragalge, to actually have an impact in the game. Otherwise, you're kind of left up the creek without a paddle, trying to make a non-mega mon work. You're not actually getting those KOs against people that are correctly EV trained to eat these non-stab versions of Bolt Beam. So it's a good mon. It's number 7 on our list for a reason. But I think since it requires mega to actually have an impact, you can't really open with it. It's going to be a little bit harder to play than other dragons on our list that are actually just like super broken. So let's start talking about number 6. We're starting to get into the better part of the decks here, and I think we're going to start off with another new dragon. Holy moly, these new dragons are going crazy. We're going to talk about Mega Feraligatr. So Mega Feraligatr has arguably one of the best defensive types in the game. Water Dragon. Only Kingdra and Palkia, I believe, share this defensive typing, and it's really, really good. The only things that are super effective against it are going to be Dragon and Fairy, so it's unfortunate that's going into a meta with Xerneas in it, but yeah, it's really, really good. Everything basically takes normal damage. Now, this guy's a massive 160 base attack stat, pretty good defensive stat too. Like, this guy is actually definitely usable, and regular Feraligatr is usable as well. It gets access to like ice coverage. I can't believe they didn't give this guy Ice Punch. I think that's just so weird they didn't give it Ice Punch, but it does get access to like Curse, Curse, Outrage, Waterfall. Some people put Ice Fang on it, some people put Earthquake. I think it's a realistically like pretty good mon. If we go take a look at like Pokemon Showdown over here and plug in Mega Feraligatr, right, the differences between them, you gain 55 base in the attack, 20 on the defense, 10 speed up. That's exactly what you need from like a new bulky mega. So if we were to plug this guy in here, you would probably go with something like Curse, being able to boost your attack and defense. Remember, speed's not that important here. And then you could go with something like Liquidate is good. You could go with something like Outrage on this guy. And then you could probably just go with something like Earthquake. I've seen people tech a couple other options there too, like Ice Fang, but I think Earthquake is fine. Being able to do big AoE. And then like, honestly, very similar to a lot of the other mons in this game, you're not going to be wrong in going like heavy bulk. Like, this is the standard EV spread on most mons in this game. Since speed's not really valuable, you almost always want to max this HP stat on these bulky mons. And then from there, instead of taking points out of HP, what you would probably do is take points out of attack to like shore up like the SPDF stat if you really wanted to live through like a specific like Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam, and rely on the fact that you have Curse up here to cover up for the fact that your defense wouldn't have as much investment. So something like that, maybe you would play for like Bump if we were to set these to level 50. Like, you'd probably play, right around, like if I were to play this mon, I would probably use an EV spread similar to, where are we going to find it? Where's the bump happen on this guy? Right there is 236, and you still have the last 20 right there. So it's a little bit more like optimal way to run this thing, but I think it's very good. I have not played a ton of games with this guy, but every game that I have played with it, I've found value in the non-mega version of Feraligatr. And then like, if I'm just having it on the board right when I'm about to have enough to mega, and then I mega to get an extra kill or two, like it ends up trading like 1 for 3, and that's a really, really valuable mon. So definitely we're turning into the point where these things are starting to get usable, and now we're going to enter the top 5. We're now going to enter the top 5 where Pokemon are just really, really good, and the Pokemon that are remaining are good in their mega form, outside of their mega form, and just overall amazing Pokemon with some really good coverage. So going into top 5, a pretty surprising pick for being how low it is on the list is actually going to be Mega Salamence, How the Mighty Have Fallen, right? This thing was previously built heavily upon the fact that it had Aerialate as its ability, but Dragon Flying typing is going to mean it has a 4 times weakness to flying, and then like this stat spread's good. It can be physical or special. It has really, really good coverage. I would say if we're comparing this to other Dragon Flying types, the fact that it only has a 145 base attack without like an ability to like boost that further, and like the same coverage as something like Dragonite, means that it's going to struggle just a little bit. But that being said, physical coverage, special coverage is good. I would say this is one of the better mons in just regular form without its mega. So let's plug in Salamence here. You can see the difference between both these guys. Can't even talk about this guy over here. 135 to 145. You only get 10% boost going to your mega. So when we take a look at this thing, what we're realistically looking at is mostly just regular Salamence. Like the mega is just the, icing on the cake. You can mega if you want. So like the fact that that's an option is going to be really good. but like regular Salamence is very good. You know, flying typing to block EQs, dragon coverage, you know, EQ. You have basically have the full package here. You get like Rock Slide. I think you also get like Stone Edge as well if you wanted to go with that as an option. I think it also gets access to like Iron Head if you wanted to like pin fairies. This thing gets basically like everything. Very, very solid mon. I would say something like Dragonite is probably a little bit better, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in the list, but I think this is still good, and the fact that it can mega means you're going to have a lot of value with it no matter what. I will say it's been relatively underwhelming when I play it, just because like it doesn't really get the stat boosting moves that some of these other ones get. You know, if you compare it to something like a Garchomp that gets Swords Dance, we don't get Swords Dance. So like when we have our set here that looks something like this with like Fly, which is really good, we're not one-shotting anything, right? We just can't one-shot anything. We can finish things off, but even if we hit things for super effective with like a Life Orb set, it just doesn't really get the KO since every single opposing Pokemon in the game is rocking these like heavy full HP sets, and so many people are rocking the bulky values. So even when we hit things for super effective, it doesn't really get the KO, even in some of these situations. Like I went into a Meganium and I flied and I hit it with the Life Orb Fly, and I was like full attack, and it just lived, and I was like, that's stupid, you know? So it's like, what do you really want out of these mons? The fact that it gets these coverage moves is good, but it can't really 1v1 or like one-shot anything, which is going to keep it just a little bit lower on the list than it had been in previous gens. But let me know what you think about Salamence. Let me know if you think I've rated it a little bit too low, maybe if I'm a little bit too harsh on it. And let's move on to number 4. And so moving on to number 4 on our list, who is going to be number 4? It's going to be another Megamon. But who's it gonna be? It's gonna be Charizard X at number 4. And I think Charizard X is actually gonna be like better and better and better as Ranked Battle Season 2 moves on, because it has a good matchup into all the other mons that are going to be supporting the Yveltals and the Xerneas, while also having a decent matchup into the Yveltal and Xerneas themselves. Like this thing is really good into like Metagross. This is decent into Excadrill in some situations, and a lot of those steel types really do fear this thing. It has a lot of gap closers. It gets access to Dig, it gets access to Earthquake, it gets access to Flare Blitz. Like this is good coverage, and the fact that it can be built physical or special with a really cool moveset, like you can totally go special Charizard X with like Flamethrower, Fire Blast. I don't think it learns Draco Meteor, so you can just go Dragon Pulse on it. But yeah, it's still cool. It gets like a Focus Blast and things like that, Hurricane. It's also pretty usable in its non-mega form. Just Charizard's a good mon with good defensive typing. You're going to be able to swap in, you know, block damage from fairy moves, block damage from ground moves, block damage from fighting moves. I think regular Charizard is going to be good, but I do think the fact that Charizard X gains that massive attack boost is still really good. Also, like I said, you can definitely still go special with this thing. It's going to get a lot bulkier on the defensive side too, so it's going to be a very valuable mon on a lot of teams. That being said, it gets access to like Earthquake, it gets access to, you know, Outrage is still really good. I prefer technically Dragon Rush on this thing. That way you can avoid a little bit of damage and use it as a gap closer. You can go access to like Flare Blitz here. And then when I play this mon, what I've actually been teching in this last spot is Protect. I've been really liking Protect to just be able to block like the one Earthquake or like a gap closer or like an opposing dragon move. You block that one move and you just repin them very easily. But some people really like Thunder Punch here because it lets you hit Gyarados for super effective. It's decent against Yveltal and things like that. So this is the standard set people have been running. And again, they just go heavy HP attack. But I think it's very good. I think Charizard X is going to be better and better and better moving forward. And the last 3, the top 3, are going to be the best dragon types. Holy moly, these next 3 are going to be the ones you definitely need to be using in Ranked Battle Season 2. Let's take a look at them here. Who do you think we have? We have a few left. We have the fossils. We have, you know, basically the fossils left and a few other things, but I think a lot of people probably know the top 3, but they don't really know the top 3's order. So let's start talking about it. And I think Ampharos is going to be starting things off at 3rd. Now, it's weird. When you take a look at Ampharos, you might not think that it's one of the best dragon types in the game because it's not really leaning into what makes it a dragon. Heck, a lot of these things don't even carry the only like dragon move that it gets, which is Dragon Pulse, because it has such low range and it has such a long startup. But that's a very high base special attack stat. And what actually makes Ampharos a viable Pokemon, you guys that play the ranked ladder, I'm sure you already know, Ampharos is one of the best leads in the game. It gets a light screen, it gets reflect, it's one of the best screeners in the game, and then the set that a lot of people go is charge on it. So it gives you a +1 boost to your speed F, and then your next electric move has ×2 power. So you go charge and you go thunderbolt, and this is like the best, most safest lead in the game. Dual screens plus the ability to like charge and gain even more boosts and then one-shot something. And it also gives you much needed like defense against things like Yveltal, Gyarados, having like that good electric coverage. And the fact that it starts off as regular Ampharos, which is an electric type, means you only have weakness to ground, which slots in perfectly for the fact that a lot of teams like to tech in those flying type mons. So like Ampharos, Yveltal, and like, you know, some other like fire type or something, or maybe like a steel type is going to be amazing, an amazing core moving forward in Ranked Battle Season 2. I think that like this is a really, really underrated Pokemon, one of my favorites, and like you technically can just play it like a really like aggressive coverage mon with like, you know, Dragon Pulse. It gets access to Focus Blast, it gets access to like Power Gem, it gets access to Flash Cannon if you do need something to hit fairies. Like I think it's very viable. I think it can do a lot of different stuff, and more people should, you know, try using this thing out. The fact that it's not really reliant on its item, but if you want to mega it to gain like some resistances to like fire, water, grass, stuff like that, it makes it really, really good. It has a higher base HP than a lot of these other mons, and what sets it apart, like I was talking about, from like the Drampals and the Dragalges, is that it only gets better when it megas, but it's not reliant on the mega to do what the kit needs to do to win. Because like Ampharos just has like a decent special attack, 115. You can do what you need to do with the light screens, charges, thunderbolts without actually having to use the mega. But when you do go mega, you gain better defense, you gain better speed def, and you gain 50 base special attack. That's absolutely amazing. This Pokemon is going to be so good. You need to use this on your team, and you won't regret it, I promise. So we're into the top 2. So the top 2 best dragons in the game, and number 2 is going to be going to Dragonite. Now we're going to take a look at Mega Dragonite right here, but Mega Dragonite is actually very similar to Salamence. It's one of those mons where like actually just Dragonite is really good. It's a solid lead, it has amazing coverage. Dragon Flying is one of the best defensive types in the current meta just because you can block fire, water, grass, you know, fighting, ground, all those resistances. Like look at all these resistances that you like. That's your weaknesses, holy moly. No, that's your resistances here. No, this is your resistances. That's your normals. So like you resist fire, water, fighting, bug, you know, very resistant to grass, immune to ground. You're weak against rock, dragon, fairy, and then you're super weak against ice 4 times. But like look at this coverage, like absolutely amazing. If we take a look as well at its stats on Mega Dragonite, it becomes a much more valuable special attacker. So what I've seen a lot of people doing when they build this thing is going like, so let's go right into this here. So we see both these guys right here. You see the differences between them. Like regular Dragonite is what you're going to use if you want to go physical. I've seen people use like Expert Belt, Life Orb, and they just go like massive damage right off the rip, and you just have a solid lead with like extreme speed, which is one of the only mons that gets it. And then if you want to go special with like Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, Draco, you go Mega Dragonite, which is going to be really good. I think it's going to be really cool. It gains a little bit of speed def, gains a little bit of defense, and I think that like Mega Dragonite is one of those mons that it's similar to like Dragalge, where if you're going full Mega Dragonite, it does take a little bit more babysitting just because you're not getting those big KOs with stuff like, you know, Ice Beams and Thunderbolts early before you Mega, because regular Dragonite has such a low base special attack compared to its Mega. But when you do Mega, you have like a game-winning mon that can get 2 or 3 KOs pretty easily. And one of the reasons why it's a little bit higher than them is just because Dragonite is just a much better standard mon than things like Dragalge and Drampa and stuff like that. Has better defensive typing, it flows with the team a little bit better, and I do think the fact that like regular Dragonite is just so good, it's almost deserving of being second on the list just by itself. The fact that it has a whole other mode that it can go with this special Mega Dragonite just makes it just so much better. So Mega Dragonite and regular Dragonite are going to be number 2 on the list, which means we have none other than the big bad boy themselves. Everyone knows this thing, gonna be Mega Garchomp, numero uno. I've seen so many people say, they're like, I can't believe Mega Garchomp's actually good at something. And what I realized is that like no one that says that played like VGC 2014. Like this mon was actually really usable in 2014. You saw it like at regionals all the time. It even had like a really deep run at nationals 2014. It might have been even worlds at 2014. It had a pretty deep run. This guy gets amazing bulk. Like that's the thing. It has 170 base attack, one of the highest in the game. Massive bulk, 108 base HP. It gets every gap closer in the game. It stabs the dig. It stabs the Dragon Rush. It can outrage. It has Earthquake. It has Stone Edge for steel or for flying coverage and stuff like that. Amazing resistances. Like, this thing is the full package, and we're not even talking about just how good regular Garchomp is as well. Like, you can go with an AV Garchomp, a Yachi Garchomp, a Life Orb Garchomp, like, and just magnify the fact that this stat line is absolutely amazing as well. But like, yeah, look at the Mega. Is 40 base attack, 20 base defense, 10 base SPDF. You can even go special too if you wanted to run like Earth Power on Mega Garchomp, but everyone kind of knows that Mega Garchomp's one of the best mons in the game. It also gets access, unlike a lot of these other ones, to Swords Dance. I think Swords Dance is very viable. You see a lot of people going like Swords Dance, Earthquake. I like the Dragon Rush over the Outrage, but some people definitely still like the Outrage because they don't want to get Protect baited or swapped in on. And then the last move, some people have been taking Stone Edge on this thing. And this is one of the best mons to actually just go through and use the, like, we use the 252 set. You know, on some mons, you know, we don't really say that, like, you need to use 252, but like this one's like, it was made for this, right? It has the big attack, it has the big HP with the massive chunk. I think it's going to be one of the best mons in the game for a long time. No matter how good Xerneas and Yveltal are in Ranked Battle Season 2, people are still going to be using Garchomp because Garchomp picks apart the Pokemon. They're going to be supporting those Yveltals and Xerneases. Like, it's going to dump truck those Metagrosses. It's going to dump truck those Charizards. You're going to be able to one-shot so many other things, and then you can use your Mega Garchomp to beat other Mega Garchomps because Mega Garchomp is going to be so popular. So it's going to be the perfect meta Pokemon. If you're looking for a Dragon type, this is definitely going to be it. So that being said, those are all of the dragons in the game. Unfortunately, Tyrantrum just barely missed the mark here. I think it has too many weaknesses. The fact that it has that, you know, fighting and ground weakness on top of all of its other weaknesses, and the fact that its, you know, gap closers are, I would say, subpar, since Head Smash Math deals like a ton of recoil back, means it's going to miss the list. Noivern also misses the list because it doesn't get access to the Bolt Beam like things like Goodra do. But that being said, if you guys like this series, you want to see more little videos like it where we go over all the top 5 or top 10 different types of Pokemon that you should be using for ranked battles in Pokemon Legends ZA, please think about letting me know. We're trying our best to make the most educational content for this game out here on YouTube. And if you guys have any critiques or things you want to see me do better, please think about letting me know in the comments. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. And other than that, peace out, and I'll see you guys next time.